Broadcasting to the Wizarding World since 2008.
HPANA's official Harry Potter podcast.
Official Harry Potter podcast.
This is Hogwarts Radio. This is Hogwarts Radio, episode 227 for December 23rd, 2018. Hogwarts Radio is HPANA.com's podcast discussing all things Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the rest of the Wizarding World. For the quickest up-to-date news on the franchise, make sure you check out HPANA.com. Hello, everyone, and this is Hogwarts Radio, broadcasting to Harry Potter fans worldwide since 2008. I'm Terrance Pinkston.
And I'm Luke Hogan. Our show can be found virtually anywhere online, such as iTunes, the Google Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Radio Public, and other places where podcasts are aggregated. It doesn't matter where or how you listen, just make sure to tap the subscribe button and we guarantee you'll have a new episode each Sunday. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so you never miss an update from the show.
Don't forget, Hogwarts Radio is also on Patreon. By pledging, you'll have instant access to many benefits, including exclusive merchandise, host vlogs, behind-the-scenes planning of the show, Hogshead Radio, and much more. Visit patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio to sign up today. Welcome to episode 227, our final episode before... I should have just left it. Our final episode... Tick, 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 tick. Before Christmas, and our final episode of 2018. Wow, what a year. Yeah, no joke.
I feel like, this is year 20, right? We're still kind of in the Harry Potter 20th anniversary time period. And I gotta say, I think this was still one of the most active years that I can remember in the community. What do you think on that?
If not the most active, it's just been a busy year all around for the Wizarding World franchise. And it's been keeping us busy.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you would think, we have a Harry Potter franchise news podcast, and 20 years later, you've got to run out of material, right? No, they keep shoveling it on top of us.
Yeah. And there were a lot of big stories coming out of the year. We'll go through a couple of those starting in just a moment, but I honestly feel like we're never going to run out of content with the way this world is expanding. And if this year is any indication as to how far this world's going to be expanding, I think we're going to be doing this podcast into our 80s.
We'll be like Voldemort, still, hiding those Horcruxes into our 70s. So.
Our Horcruxes are our episodes. Which episodes, we'll never know.
Technically, we are leaving parts of our souls into each one.
Ooh.
So you could make that argument that we're already doing that. We're just not killing people that will admit on air.
That's actually true. Yeah. Gosh, I mean, where do you even start with some of the biggest stories out of the year? I mean, we could go chronologically, January through the end of this month. And hey, J.K. Rowling could drop another bomb on us before the end of the year. She still has a couple of days to do that. But okay, so let's start with, kind of the biggest story, I feel, was the release of Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. Of course, a new film coming out of the franchise. Very hyped up. Lots of opportunity. I'm sure the studio is going to learn from as far as marketing and all that other stuff, but really an enjoyable film in my opinion. And I know we've talked about that several times on our previous episodes, but I really liked it.
Yeah, I think my feelings were pretty clear on the last episode I was on. I really, really enjoyed this movie. And I think you guys did a really great job on the last episode, the SWOT analysis, going through what the movie did really well, what were some of the maybe weaker points, and the opportunities that they maybe could have taken and can go from here. And it's sad that I missed out on it because it was a really great discussion. But I just think there's a lot of meat left on the bone in this new story in the franchise. And that, I gotta say, I mean, I feel a complete resurgence into this new story that I wasn't anticipating necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, this movie really went in different directions that none of us could have anticipated. I mean, I'm sure that nobody saw Aurelius Dumbledore happening at the end, much less that happening to Credence.
Right, yeah, it challenged a lot of things, and it kind of pushed the envelope on a lot of things. And I can see why a lot of the initial reactions weren't so favorable. It's a lot of new. There's a lot of new, and it's a very different story than what we've gotten previously. But as someone who has read these books, I can't tell you how many times I like that it seems like JK's writing is still growing along with the stories that she's telling. She's not giving us all, spoon feeding all of this information. It's not the first, we're not necessarily getting all of the first couple chapters of every book where we used to get, where it was kind of frustrating. It's like, okay, well, I know the story. You don't have to keep telling me all this exposition. We're just jumping right into it. And maybe some characters get a little overlooked, but you can figure that out on the rewatch. I wasn't expecting to rewatch it. So,
it's funny that you bring up the writing, is because that's what a lot of people had trouble with. They felt like we were overloaded with information. And the way that I see it is that this movie and this film franchise, of course, it's J.K. Rowling branching out to a new medium in her writing skills as she ventures out more as an artist. And I tend to think of this more of like adaptive writing. She's adapting as she goes. She's adapting her writing style to tailor it to a screenplay. And she's going to learn. She still has 3 movies left. And she completed, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but she's just completed the Fantastic Beasts 3 screenplay. So, I'm sure that there's a couple of changes that she made, but it's J.K. Rowling. She's going to give you a lot of information. That's what she is known for. Her writing is very complex. She is a wonderful storyteller. So I'm just really excited to see how the writing is going to evolve with the rest of the series.
I'll put a caveat on what I was just saying. There were some challenges and maybe not perfect things that happened in the story because it's so condensed. I think the rapidity of the film kind of worked against it a bit at times, that I can see where a lot of the frustration came from. But it's because she's gotten so used to writing 750 page books, and she's trying to tell a very similar length of story for a movie, and it's hard to have what would normally be a 20-hour audiobook condensed down to just over 2 hours. So that's just a challenge, and I'm excited to see where her skills will lead her, because in Joe I trust.
It's funny. One of the other stories coming out of the year for Hogwarts Radio, in fact, was we recorded that Speak Beastie Radio episode with our friends over there at the Speak Beastie podcast. Yeah, and there were a lot of different opinions on that panel as far as trusting J.K. Rowling's writing. There were some of us that felt that, she has to provide the clear answers in black and white. She can't mess with canon. She can't do a lot of the things that she did in this movie. And I mean, my response to that is just like, it's J.K. Rowling. It's her story. She can do whatever she wants with it. However, it's got to make sense for some people, and it has to tie up at the end for everything. And I don't have a problem with not trusting her on that, because I absolutely 100% think that this story is going to tie up very nicely, and all the loose ends will be, trimmed up. But there's some people that really needed those answers right here in this movie, and they were frustrated that they didn't get them.
I don't know what to tell those people. It's the second of 5 movies. It's early. I mean, if you there are a lot. This is a presentation of new things. Movie 1 out of a 5 movie franchise is going to set the tone, get you introduced to the main characters. It's going to be lighthearted. It's going to be fun. It's going to make you fall in love with the main characters, and it did. Everyone loves Newt. Everyone loves Jacob and Queenie and Tina, and Credence, has a special place in your heart because of what he went through. And the second story isn't going to be that again. It just can't be, because then it's just fluff. It's just, oh, this is nice the whole time. This has to raise the stakes. This has to show us that there's a bigger thing at work here, and it's scary. It's not called, the Wizarding World, the Wizarding War, before Voldemort gains power. They say that Voldemort was the, most evil wizard in 100 years. But I mean, it seems like they're referencing back to Grindelwald. You've got to sell Grindelwald as a big thing, because we're sold in book 1. Oh, and Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald, 1945. Like, you have to give that some weight to it, because we know how powerful Dumbledore is. So you have to make Grindelwald equal, at least from what it looks like. So the good guys aren't going to win in this story. They just aren't, and they probably won't next movie either. They're going to get a couple wins. They're going to get a couple losses, but there's still going to be more questions, and you just got to roll with it.
One thing J.K. Rowling did mention in a tweet recently was that answers are given in the third movie. Yeah, while answers are given, there's going to be more questions that come out of that, and that's only, something natural for a story this complex. And, 5 movies, well, yeah, there's going to be more questions and more answers given, but you're not going to have that fine balance. You're either going to have one that's more than the other. So the way I thought of this movie, and as we are digging into it a little bit more on our regular podcast episodes and in the fan community in general, is I find a lot of parallels, not necessarily within the content, but with the movie itself to Prisoner of Azkaban. And the reason why I'm saying that, everybody's like, no, they don't match at all. No, this is what I'm saying. Prisoner of Azkaban went a completely different direction, right? We brought in Alfonso Cuarón. He took the cinematography a completely different way. He took away that comfortableness that we felt with the Wizarding World, and he brought out, casual clothes. He brought out scary situations with werewolves and things like that. Well, the first 2 Harry Potter movies were fluff, and we don't have that luxury to have that with this series because of the way that the story is progressing so fast.
I mean, you're equating it to movie 3, and I'll say no, because of all the beasts, there were no singing frogs. So, come on. No, I'm clearly teasing. No, I see exactly what you're saying, and I very, very much agree. And even though I called the first Fantastic Beasts movie fluff, I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean it's lighthearted, it's fun. I love that movie. I just watched it again last night and the night before. It's a great movie, and it's just not going to have the same weight and difficulty for our main characters as we're going to have as we go through. If you remember, again, going back to books 1 and 2, same with movies 1 and 2, it was at the end of 3 that I always viewed, okay, well, now the story is really starting. Looking back on it, books 1 and 2 are kind of standalone stories. Movie 1 for Fantastic Beasts kind of feels that way. Yeah, it puts some characters in different places, but it kind of stands alone. Like, oh, animal beasts got out of the case. They get them back in the case. Like, that's kind of the overall story. And
right,
you have all these cool character interactions and the obscurus thing going everywhere, but it kind of tidies itself up. I get the feeling that movie 2, Crimes of Grindelwald, is very much the Prisoner of Azkaban of the series, in that from here, everything is going to connect until the very, very last paragraph of the last screen writing. And I'm excited for that.
Another big story out of the year, the second biggest story, I feel, in my opinion, is the controversy with David Yates on Dumbledore not being explicitly gay in Fantastic Beasts 2. So the reason why I feel like this is such a big story is because of the response it elicited from the Harry Potter fandom. People were lit about this. They were on fire. I mean, it was just like for weeks on end. And I felt like even months after this interview came out, people were just like, I'm so done with the series if they're not going to be, if J.K. Rowling, preaches equality and then she's not giving Dumbledore his due time to show that he is explicitly gay, then a lot of those fans felt like, she's not representing what I got out of this series and I'm done with her. And that most certainly, as the movie came out and we saw, most certainly wasn't the case. I mean, I felt like it was explicit enough. I mean, what did they want to see, full-on snogging or something like that? I'm not sure what these people were expecting, but there was enough of it there.
Yeah, so it always comes back to the word explicit, right? And how you take that in context. And Mr. Yates was trying to get at, but it is not specifically stated in the movie. And maybe that's kind of where he was hanging his hat. It is very clear. It's very, very implicitly clear. And that's kind of the thing, is he's kind of like technically correct that it's not super explicit, like, hey, I'm Albus Dumbledore and I'm gay. Like, that's not going to happen. And
right.
If that would happen, if that's like the definition of explicitly gay that David Yates is following, which it sounds like it is because we've talked about this over and over. And it seems like that is what he's qualifying as being explicitly gay, which is fine. I would feel that would be very out of character for Albus Dumbledore. I like the way it was done in the movie in that, okay, it's there. It's on screen. They don't have to say it out loud. It's very clear. You know what they're getting at. It's just Dumbledore isn't going to be the one that would talk to anybody about that. So it just wouldn't make sense in a script for those words to be spoken.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, though. I mean, in general.
I mean, yeah, totally agree with everything you said. If you're using a plot device, much as the Mirror of Erised is, and you're showing that what he is seeing in the mirror. Oh, that's another big thing coming out of the year. We finally know what Dumbledore sees in the Mirror of Erised. Then I feel like for me, granted, I'm not a member of that community, but I, have a very good understanding about it. I feel like that should be enough for now. Let the story play out. We don't know what's going to happen in the future films. We didn't, at the time that this came out, we didn't even know the context behind Dumbledore seeing Grindelwald in the mirror. Like, was it a trick? Was it not? Was it something that he wished that he could have had? Like how much more explicit can you get other than, like I said, full-on snogging? I felt like that was very clear, and the explicitness was there because that's, the audience was exposed to Dumbledore viewing what his deepest desire in his heart was in that mirror.
To me, I think the biggest part of this problem was probably a poor choice of words when David Yates was kind of probably backed into a corner for questions,
right?
Kind of put on the spot, and he had to say something, and people misinterpreting what he was saying. I think the points against it are very valid. I think what David Yates was saying also is kind of technically valid, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, I think it's done well in the movie. And if anyone in the LGBTQIA plus community has, qualms or problems with it, they have every right to still have a problem with it. And that's, I'm for you. Like that's
right.
That's cool. I personally think it was done well though.
Agreed. Third biggest story to come out of the year was the rebranding of J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World to just Wizarding World. I felt that this is a very big story. We got it right before the first trailer dropped for Crimes of Grindelwald, and with the rebrand, you saw it all over the place. I mean, you saw it on Pottermore, you see it in the theme parks, you saw it, you see the logo everywhere, and even at the movie theater, I saw
in the trailers.
Yeah, in the trailers, and I saw it at the very beginning of Crimes of Grindelwald, where they had Wizarding World, and then the wands that were fanned out like the NBC logo.
Wizarding World.
Yeah, so I thought this is very big because not only did it affect like the films, but it affected everything in this, everything that the Wizarding World represents, theme parks and stuff like that. So they had to be extra sure, hey, is this what we're going for? We're dropping J.K. Rowling's name from it and then move forward with that. I feel like this was a big thing because you're dropping J.K. Rowling you're dropping her namesake from the brand.
Yeah, I remember when we discussed this isn't something I have a ton of knowledge in, so I'm more just kind of curious. And I know whenever we first talked about this like that, my first thought on it is, well, does that mean, because who actually owns the Wizarding World brand name? Is that Universal?
That'll be Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers is what I meant. Does that mean they're going to start looking at other writers to come in and add stories to this franchise? I mean, what are your feelings on that?
So I feel like they're gonna let it play out as long as they can. As long as she keeps producing content, they won't go to any kind of outside source to help write content for the Wizarding World. They're just going to rely on J.K. Rowling, who says that now she loves doing it because one of the reasons why she is writing this Fantastic Beasts film series is because of the fans. She says she's doing it all because of the fans and all, the massive response she's gotten for this world over the past 20 years. I feel like while she's around and kicking, they're never going to let anybody else come near this brand name to as far as new content without her approval. Now we do have Cursed Child with that was co-written with John Thorne and Jack Tiffany, and they came up with a lot of the newness that we see in Cursed Child, but that's as far as I feel like somebody's going to try to take it. I mean, if somebody wants to write a ninth story, hey, there's fan fiction websites out there. You can start a blog. It's not going to be acknowledged canon unless J.K. Rowling says it is.
Yeah, I wonder like why they're choosing to do this now. Then focusing more on the Wizarding World aspect of it makes sense to me in that, hey, we really need to make this the name brand. We need to make it when people talk about anything in this fictional world, it needs to be branded as the Wizarding World as opposed to, in Harry Potter, because you do that and it starts segmenting off Fantastic Beasts as a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And it isolates itself from each other. So it'd be like if Star Wars was called, Luke Skywalker, like from, episode 4, it really would have pigeonholed itself pretty quick. But branding it Star Wars, the more generic, overall overarching thing from the start, I think has helped it last for 40 years now. And they're trying to get ahead of that since it didn't start with that to brand it that a little bit louder now.
Yeah.
So I agree with that aspect of it. I just wonder why her name was taken off of it specifically.
I mean, and that could be most certainly the case too, is that her name was removed because of, she wanted to wash her hands of most things involved with this franchise and just focus on creating content, not really, all the business aspects, the brand, what is it called? The brand development team. The Wizarding World is growing at an exponential rate right now. We have, all this merchandise. We have the mobile games. We have the new movies. We have the theme parks. I mean, there's so much that just branches off the Wizarding World, and I think it makes sense to drop J.K. Rowling's name from it because, we already know that this is J.K. Rowling's universe. We don't need to be reminded of it, I think. And, I mean, much as Star Wars, too. Like, you don't say George Lucas's Star Wars presents Episode 8, The Last Jedi or anything like that. You know that his name is synonymous with Star Wars, just like J.K. Rowling's name is synonymous with Wizarding World or Harry Potter or Fantastic Beasts. People don't need to be reminded of it.
I wonder if it also, and I don't know if this was in their thought process at all, but protects her social media wise a bit, just with a slight, separation in that every decision that the Wizarding World makes, she isn't personally attacked on Twitter, which has happened over and over and over again. I mean, she talked about, celebrities seeing a lot of abuse and via social media. She has had plenty. And I wonder if this is potentially going to lessen that a bit. Might not be a part of the reason, but I think it potentially could. It might not be, J.K. Rowling is the reason we don't have such and such at the Universal Park. She's here to create content. She's not here delivering every single day-to-day business aspect, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so the next news story we have coming off of 2018 was the Depp debacle. And people saying that they were going to boycott the Fantastic Beasts 2 movie because Johnny Depp was not recast and because J.K. Rowling stood behind and David Yates stood behind Johnny Depp and, kind of gave him that stamp of approval saying, you know what, he's good to go with us. For those of you that don't know, Johnny Depp is one of the stars that has been accused of domestic violence. And that had its day in court, and that was settled out under the most secretive of settlements, but still doesn't absolve him from wrongdoing in the fans' eyes. So You know, a lot of people were saying, you know what, I'm just not going to see this movie. You have, not only do you have this, you know, domestic abuser, but you have the writer of the franchise standing behind him. You have the director and the producers standing behind him. I just feel like that, like, the fans were pissed off because they feel that their opinion didn't matter.
Yeah, I definitely think this, along with the David Yates Dumbledore sexuality, stories were the two largest detrimental stories to the movie, and I just have a hard time thinking that these two combined didn't play a part in the lower numbers during opening weekend. And I don't know, like, it's say, you know, all publicity is good publicity. I just don't think that always is true. I think that's a bad mantra.
You know, and at first, whenever that was what was going through my mind, whenever I got out of the theater and I saw almost a near empty parking lot, I was like, oh my God, are people really that pissed off and upset at this franchise to where they're not, like, they are making a stand? Like, because remember, there was a movement going around where people weren't going to see this film on opening weekend because they wanted to make a statement to Warner Brothers and said, hey, it's not okay what you guys are standing behind. It's not okay for you guys to take this kind of stance on this sensitive matter. But I really, at the end of the day, I don't think that it played much in the box office numbers for Crimes of Grindelwald. I don't think that it was that big of an impact. Like, what he had done was that big of an impact for the film performing poorly.
I think that's fair. There were a lot of mistakes, I think, made for marketing this movie, and those two stories just did not help create a positive environment for the fans to be excited about the movie as it was preparing to come out. And I don't have a whole lot to say on Johnny Depp specifically. Yeah. It's kind of why I'm talking around it a bit, but
you know, and
go ahead.
And in the movie, I felt like not that all of this went away, but I felt like he did such a great job at what his actual job was. You know, Johnny Depp is a character actor. So whenever he gets into his character, he shines. That's where he shines in his career. And I thought, while a recast might have been appropriate, I don't know if anybody could have reached that level of Grindelwaldness that Johnny Depp reached. I mean, for God's sake, he appeared at Comic-Con in San Diego as Grindelwald and gave that speech that he gives at the end of the movie. He gave that to the audience. So I don't know if recasting him would have been such a great idea, and I don't know if it would have played into, you know, raising numbers at the box office. It's a very fine line there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Another big story coming out of the year was, let's see, let's wrap up the controversies here, I suppose. Claudia Kim being cast as Nagini. That was a big deal for, you know, an Asian woman to be cast as this serpent character. I'm not quite sure I still understand what the controversy was. But, you know, people have their right to be able to feel the way that they do. And really, that's all I'm going to say about this.
Yeah. So again, I try to be clear. This is not something I have a whole lot of knowledge in, but I do think there is a lot of historical precedent for racial bias and racial slurs towards Asian women that are serpentine in nature. I think that's a thing. And I also think it kind of comes from, I mean, we did some research in some of our episodes that the Nagini is an old Asian term for literally snake woman. Like it's kind of in the historical precedence for this type of magical entity. And so I can see where she's pulling from. It'd be, I don't know. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I can see exactly where, to me, it makes a lot of sense as to why it was chosen the way it was. I hope it didn't offend anybody, and I think it was really well done. It was maybe short-lived on screen a bit. It was one of those storylines that kind of got swept under the rug a little bit and didn't get explored maybe as much as it should have. But I thought Claudia Kim was very convincing in her role, and I'm glad to see more representation of people of different nations. I think that's one thing that you could go the complete opposite way and say this film franchises not done a great job of bringing in people of different colors and ethnicities and all sorts of different backgrounds.
Right.
And I like the inclusion, even though it's very limited and maybe it could have more. I like the way that they're trying to branch out by going to different cultures and getting fans familiar with different parts of the world. I think it's an overall positive mentality behind it.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to see where they're going to go next.
Kind of wondering how she's going to end up in this snake form permanently. I mean, we know it has to deal with a blood curse, sure, but to actually see what triggers that and what happens to her, it had to be some sort of traumatic event is what I'm thinking. And I'm sure we're going to save these theories for future episodes. But I would love to see how her story is going to play out. And I don't have, it's not that I'm ignorant to it or anything like that, but I just don't have a problem with her being Nagini because I felt like she portrayed that snake wonderfully. Moving on, we have the 4th book in the Corman Strike series, Lethal White, being released. Luke and I were talking before the show here. Neither of us has read the Corman Strike series, but that's okay. That doesn't mean it's not good.
I have read the first 3, and I do really enjoy this series. I've been pretty busy, so I haven't been able to get to the 4th one yet. But I do recommend them. If you like detective stories, they are good. I mean, it's good writing, good characters. They're kind of quick. I mean, very enjoyable, I would say.
What else do we have here? Hogwarts Mystery released on iOS and Android. This was highly anticipated, and people were downloading the hell out of this game and then getting stuck in the first level where the devil's snare was killing them and you had to wait 12 hours for your energy bubbles to come back. I feel like, I deleted the game. I really did from my devices because I just, I got tired of waiting for the energy to try to come back. And granted, they've kept the game visually appealing because they've been adding new things, which is exciting. I'm glad they're updating it. I'm glad that you're able to have kind of these little side quests, and you're starting to get some more context behind some of the characters that you never thought you would get any context behind. So to each his own, just not my cup of tea. But the graphics on the game are very beautiful. They did a real good job, a solid job of putting it together. And I feel that as long as they keep adding meaningful content, that they're just going to keep growing tenfold.
So yeah, I didn't play very far into the game just because it's not my style of game. I don't do mobile gaming much. But one thing I will say is, yes, the graphics are very, very good, and I was pretty impressed with the mobile graphic capabilities of that. I know, to me, it seems like the developers have done a really good job, from what I've heard from others playing the game, with showing respect and interest in the stories themselves and bringing it, giving some true reverence to the book canon that we know and creating a story that fits in it decently well enough without breaking any major rules, which I think goes to show that they respect the fan base pretty well. I think that's a big credit to them. I was just on the podcast 9 3/4 2019 predictions episode as well, and they're both still playing it. Rhea and Jem are both still playing the game, and they're still excited. They play it every single day, and they're both in 5th year and are really digging what the story has got going. And credit to the developers to keep people interested this long. It just wasn't for me, but that I don't want to downplay anyone that is enjoying it. It sounds like the story is well developed, and credit to the developers on that.
Let's see, what else came out of this year? A new ride in the theme park is under construction in Orlando. So the coaster was laid on the track just a few days ago. This is supposed to be some sort of Forbidden Forest ride. There haven't been too many details. Universal has been really tight-lipped about spreading any kind of rumor or anything like that. The images that we are getting are captured from drone drone footage. So that's pretty cool, though. That's how we were able to see. Oh yeah, a cart was lowered onto the track just a few days ago. So that should be open sometime in 2019, and I can't wait to go and check it out.
I wonder if they're recruiting any crash test dummies for it, because I'll
volunteers tribute.
I'll volunteer. You can find us at staff at hogwartsradio.com or smarmy lucart at hogwartsradio.com. Send us an email.
That's true. But really exciting stuff. I mean, there's new structures going up and all that jazz. So yeah, I can't wait to see the final product. And I honestly didn't think that they had room left in that little part of Islands of Adventure to expand, but hey, they found the room. Coming down to our last couple of stories this year, Voldemort Origins of the Heir, which was a fan released project on YouTube, was released to the general public early on in the year, and I have to say that this was so cool. Not only did they have the CGI effects there, or they also had some good acting. There were a couple of questionable scenes, but for the most part, I found it incredibly enjoyable. And it seems like, Luke, there's been kind of this surge of well-produced Fantastic Beasts / Harry Potter content in the video aspect.
Yeah, I definitely still need to check out the Voldemort Origins video, but I mean, everything I ever heard of it was just raving reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just the production quality was incredible. I mean, these are people that grew up watching and reading, these stories and are now in this business doing this, and this is their way to express the love of the story and bring it to a new level of medium that 20 years ago the technology to do it just wasn't as easily available as it is today. It's incredible the things you can do just on your mobile phone. I mean, the videos that you can create and the audio you can generate just from your mobile phone is insane. And if you actually have machines that are dedicated to doing this, and you have the talent and know-how and time to devote to it, I think we're going to only continue seeing more highly well-produced, passionate storytelling from content creators in this community, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. And I don't know, I'm glad to be where we're at. It's a really, really exciting time to be enjoying this community in general. I mean, so many talented people around. It's just a real treat to get to know them and get to enjoy their work.
It's funny that you mention kind of this resurgence, because there's also been a Harry Potter podcast resurgence. If you look on the iTunes store right now, there's probably 15 or 20 different shows, when, of course, whenever we started, there were probably like 3 or 4 of us, maybe 5. And that's been fascinating to see fans, kind of progress with the times as technology's evolved. It's been easier to do these things like shooting that short film or starting a podcast and things like that.
Yeah, the barrier for entrance is greatly reduced from where it was 15 years ago for the technology aspect of it. I mean, there are so many programs dedicated to, hey, do you want a podcast? Here, all you have to do is push this button and it just goes and it generates everything you need to. I mean, you can get a lot more technical with it like you and I do. And it gives us a lot of cool flexibility, but you don't have to have all this technical knowledge to get into it. And everyone has their own perspective. And I think that's the real benefit of kind of opening, the market to that, because I mean, some aren't going to work out. That's fine. But guess what? Some will. And those people are being able to spread their proverbial wings. And it's just, I like how welcoming the community is to new people who have new thoughts. And there's so many new avenues that we can still take in this book series and whole Wizarding World franchise. I mean, you could have a podcast just on going to the Wizarding World and talking about, at Universal Studios and just going over every single thing there. You could have 30 episodes real quick with how dense it is. There's so many opportunities, and it's just really neat to see.
Back in July, we had the opportunity to go to LeakyCon and podcast from there and be on this panel of Potter podcasts where we got to share our different experiences within the fandom and what it is that each and every show does. And guys, you've got to imagine how many Potter shows there are out there, right? Well, we're all talking about the same thing, kind of. Well, yeah, same subject, but the subject matter is very different. If you listen to us, you might not, we don't do the same thing as, let's say, the podcast that must not be named, your show, Luke. We don't go chapter by chapter. We don't have like a first-time reader. We don't have, kind of this firm format. I mean, we discuss the news, the popular things happening, maybe an interesting topic or two, play games, and then that's it. We're done. Some of them, go very deep into the text, and they find parallels, like, let's say, between, stuff that happens in Deathly Hallows to Hitler's regime. I mean, you have the density of this world is there. And it gives freedom to all these other shows to talk about whatever they want to talk about, but not be repetitive and try to have, 14 podcasts talking about the same exact topic week in and week out.
Yeah, touching on the density of the story is, I think, completely accurate. There are so many angles to exploit, in these stories, and everyone has their own perspective. I mean, just thinking of like shows like Potterless, you have a guy who started it reading the first book when he was 24 years old and just has lighthearted, fun chats, almost ripping on the stories, but ended up falling in love with it over time, and they're great. He's hilarious. And then you have other shows like Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, just a completely different style, completely different aspect that they're trying to get to, but also completely valid and brilliant. And then you have shows like Accio-Politics, where they go through and take real world politics and apply it each chapter by chapter to something that specifically applies in that chapter for a politic. And it's just eye-opening every single chapter. And there are so many other ones that I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning you. Like, those were just the three that popped into my head right now for completely different aspects that you can take on the same damn chapter. It's incredible.
I feel like we're kind of the old grandpa or grandma sitting in their rocking chair, telling the kids about back whenever we started podcasting. All the way
we were there when
that was waiting
for the fifth movie to come out.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's actually true. I mean, shoot, whenever we started, we didn't even have Half-Blood Prince come out, the movie. We started like about a year after Deathly Hallows, the book came out. So there was still so much to talk about. But I mean, yeah, it's amazing. You can listen to 5 different Harry Potter podcasts throughout the week, and none of us guarantee will be talking about the same thing.
And the other thing that I found really, really cool is how willing everyone is to work together. I think that is something that you might not anticipate when you first start getting into something like podcasting. Of, hey, sure, we all want to self-promote and, get our word out there, but I am super excited to talk about other people's podcasts because I got into podcasting because I love podcasts. And when I first got the chance to be on Hogwarts Radio just as a guest, I was like, oh man, that is so cool. Like, I was so excited just to be, hang out with you guys. And then you guys drug me along and said, hey, will you be a permanent host? And, I'm clearly teasing, but I've gotten to know you guys, and I've gotten to know other people in other podcasts just by the nature of, hey, you want to be on our show? Can we do something on your show? Hey, let's collaborate. And it's a community of productivity and encouragement that is truly, truly welcoming. And I encourage, if anyone listening out there wants to start a podcast, do it. The worst that's going to happen is you're not going to continue it. No one's going to be like, wow, this is terrible. No, just do it and have fun doing it, because that's what it's all about, is enjoying what you're doing and having a chance to talk about a story that we all love day in and day out.
Whenever I tell people that we've been podcasting for more than 10 years about Harry Potter, first of all, they look at me like I'm crazy, but second of all, they're like,
possibly talking about for 10 years.
Exactly. That's the other answer that I get. And that was one of the answers I think that was thrown out to us at the podcasting panel that we did at LeakyCon was, well, sure, we have new content, but how do you guys keep going for so long? And, you have to grow and adapt your show, much as we're going to do in 2019 looking ahead. We are going to partner with more YouTubers. We're going to partner with more people of influence just to get the word out there more about our show and have them bring their audience just to see, maybe they've never experienced a Potter podcast before. Maybe they're from another Harry Potter podcast, and we're like you said, Luke, we would do like a cross collab episode. And I think this past year was the high point for that, because I can't tell you how many different podcasters we had just in this year alone. And how many kind of collaborative episodes that we've done. Recently, our Speak Beastie Radio episode was one of the top hits for our show over this entire year. And people love it. People love to see that, oh my God, I listened to this show and I also listened to this show, and yet they're on the same show together. They're doing a same episode together, and people are more inclined to listen. But the biggest thing is how to keep going after 10 years is you adapt with the times. You adapt your content with the times. You bring in freshness. You bring in newness. You bring in, those people that you might not think, or that may not seem like they would care, but in the end, I mean, they do care, and they end up having a lot of fun coming on the episodes and stuff like that. But it's all about networking, I think, is the number one key to keep going, is networking and the passion that you share together.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's been a fun ride. For sure.
So looking ahead to 2019, do we have any predictions of what we would like to see in the Wizarding World franchise, or what we think is going to happen?
So I will start by saying we do have one thing in main book series canon that we know is going to happen in 2019. Do you know what it is?
It is do you mean in the actual year 2019?
Yes, in actual book series canon.
No, I can't think of anything that happens in 2019.
Lily Luna Potter starts school at Hogwarts this fall.
Oh my God.
Into Gryffindor.
That is right. Hey, is that the last thing to happen for canon, for Harry Potter canon?
I think so. I think so.
Wow, that's crazy.
Because Cursed Child all takes place in 2017.
So any predictions on what we think will happen with the franchise this year? Because the movie itself, the new movie, The Fantastic Beasts 3, isn't going to be released until 2020. So we've got a full year in between. So, I honestly think we're going to see, the Wizards Unite game, of course, will be released.
Yeah, I am excited about that. I'm not a huge mobile gamer, but I don't know. I'm kind of falling for the marketing right now. I like what I've seen, and I want it to be good. So maybe it's wishful, it's a wishful thinking involved there as well. But
right,
I am looking forward to that game.
I think answers will leak out just a hair, at an absolute trickle, and we might learn more about Credence, or we might learn more about any other character in this franchise. I think we might get a Fantastic Beasts 3 title. We know that it starts filming, like I said, in just a couple of weeks, so I think we'll get a title.
Maybe a location as well.
We know it's going to be taking place in Rio.
Is that confirmed?
That is confirmed, yeah.
Okay.
From J.K. Rowling's tweet. So that'll be exciting. I don't know, it's really, because it's an in-between year, there's just so much stuff that could happen.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if we get short film type things, and not like short film, but short, extended trailers that are more character specific based, almost starting coming out. Like, hey, here's a quick thing just with Credence, and almost time fillers. But I don't know. I could see because it seems like the Wizarding World, Warner Brothers team, they try to kind of push the envelope on trying new things for marketing purposes, for storytelling purposes.
Right.
So I think they could try to do something more of, hey, get to know the characters more in depth, without being anything story based. Almost like Walking Dead with Fear the Walking Dead. It's kind of like, here's a little snippet of something else that's in the world type thing. And I don't know exactly what that's going at, but I could see something in that realm of possibility coming out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. Well, whatever 2019 holds, I'm sure it's going to be one exciting year, filled with controversies, filled with lots of theorizing, lots of discussion. We're still like more than a year and a half away from the new Fantastic Beasts film, so I really can't see how they're going to keep growing this franchise on in between year. It's going to be interesting. And of course, Hogwarts Radio is going to be back in 2019. And really with this year, with 2018, we've done a lot of growing here on the show. Hogwarts Radio's family has grown with the addition of 2 new full-time hosts, Luke and Gretchen. And I have to say they are some of the best decisions that we've ever made to bring you two on the show, because wow, I feel like just the quality of our episodes have gotten a heck of a lot better than some of the content that we used to put out.
Well, certainly, of the hosts you brought on, 1 for 2 isn't bad. Gretchen is a real treasure, and at least you got that out of the deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, Luke, don't sell yourself short, man. I mean, like we were talking before we started recording, you said what's so nice about coming on this podcast is that I really don't have to do anything but just talk. Because with your other shows, I mean, you're the executive producer, you are the editor, you are the jack of all trades, and really coming on this show, it seems like you have time to wind down and just kind of unpack things that you might want to discuss. And that's the wonderful thing about this show too, is that we're all like, oh yeah, we're totally, let's discuss this, or no, I don't think that this is a good idea, or something else. Like we all brainstorm together, and it's such a wonderful thing.
It is a really, really good mix. I clearly like Bailey a lot, and but yeah, like the whole team dynamic that we've got, I think is unexpectedly good. Not to get too meta on everything, but this is kind of a recap of the year, and it makes me excited to come back each week knowing that I like just talking Harry Potter shop, with this group, and it's always good. It's always eye-opening. There's different perspectives, but we also know each other, and I think that has a benefit as well. So it's not completely different all the time, which can be combative at times. It's supportive and still challenging, which is, I think, really healthy for good conversation. So it's been a real treat being on here, and getting to know everyone kind of on our social media team and in our Slack channels as well has been just an amazing experience for sure.
We've also celebrated some milestones in 2018, reaching 200 episodes and 10 years of podcasting. That's crazy. That's a lot of years.
That's a whole bunch.
We enter that kind of elite status of shows that have been going on for more than 10 years, because there's not many that are still around from 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's certainly a rare achievement. I mean, and more shows will get it over time, but at this point, when podcasting really became a thing in 2007 is 2006 is when it became actually kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And shows that are still going on, very, very few. It's impressively few. And the fact that Hogwarts Radio is one of them is just a true testament to Terrance, your dedication to the community, I think, is a big part of that. And to just a passion for having good new conversations about the stories that we all love, and giving people a voice in that community is it's just something special. And so from me and from a lot of people in the community, thank you for being there, and here's to 10 more.
We've also made many friends as well, and have podcasted with some truly incredible people, be it with the panel that we have week in and week out, or special guests that we have on the show that make recurring appearances. I think we talked about this earlier, but I think it's very important to inject that newness and that freshness in the show from time to time. And if that means, one of the other hosts won't be able to make it, then that's fine, because we still have fresh insight and fresh voices and a different way of looking at the series whenever these people come on. I think we had Tessa Netting, we had Brizzy Voices, were our top two that everybody seemed to love. And then, of course, the cross-collaboration episodes, the many guests that we've had on the podcast this year have really risen the show to new levels. So for 2019, we will be bringing on an additional cast member for the show and partnering with other sites and other podcasts throughout the year. And at the suggestion of our listeners with younger children, we are going to be featuring additional content that they're going to be able to get on the fun with that, and whatever that may be, that is something exciting, because we're starting to reach that other new group of up and coming Harry Potter fans. Like, even for people on the show that have kids, we're going to be able to do something fun for them, and that's truly exciting. We're also going to be making changes to the show, like I said, by keeping it fresh, informative, and exciting. And for our Patreon page in 2019, we are going to have updates to our goals and kind of draw in more incentives for our Patreons. And for people that might be on the fence, they're like, well, what extra can I get out of that? Well, you can get a lot of stuff already, but we're going to be changing up the goals as far as the number of people and the number of signups required before we reach a certain tier, a certain break point there where you actually get those benefits. So what about personal goals? Do you have any for the new year?
Oh, man. I'll be busy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I have any personal goals other than survive, but continuing what we're doing at the podcast that must not be named is, it's always a lot of work. It's always a lot of fun. And all of the other shows that, like we were talking about a little bit ago, that I executive produce and try to support other people creating shows as well. Personal goals. Let's see. I would like to do more YouTube videos for Harry Potter specifically. And I don't know what that would look like, but that's something that I've kind of had on my radar, that maybe for the podcast.com, our Patreon exclusive podcast that we have is called The Podcast That Must Not Tell Lies, and it's you can follow it at No Muggles Pod. But it is all magical theory. It's all fan theories and things like that. That I think a personal goal of mine is to put more time into that and to bring that to a YouTube audience. So I'll put that on my personal goals and try to do maybe some, crossover of ideas with the Hogwarts Radio community as well with that. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense, but try to get some more big topic type things that we can expound upon and comment on.
So as for me, personally, I would like to take a more backseat role to podcasting. That's not to say that I'm going away or anything like that, but I want to be able to use the knowledge that I've acquired over the past 10 years in more than just a role behind the microphone, and talking to everybody week in and week out. I actually want to start producing other podcasts and things like that. So if you guys have an idea, you're passionate about something, you want some advice on how you can, reach that next level with your show, or anything that you might need help on technical wise, I want to do my best to make sure that I'm available to be able to answer those questions that you have, and help you become a better podcaster, or maybe even a better listener or a better fan, something like that. My whole personal mantra going into next year is to make everybody around me just a little bit better through, active coaching and stuff like that, and sharing of trades and best practices. So I would love to eventually step away from the microphone, of course. That has to be a goal on how I can grow, because right now I'm not growing. So I think next year is going to be the year where I focus on personal growth and stuff like that within the podcasting sector, I guess.
Well, you just gave me a whole bunch of ideas that we should talk about off air.
Tip of the iceberg, Luke. Tip of the iceberg.
Always.
Well, we would like to thank everybody for a wonderful year of podcasting. I can't thank this panel enough for the time that they sacrifice week in and week out, not just with our patrons and with our regular listeners, but other aspects of behind the scenes that you may not know of. I can't thank the staff and crew and the hosts enough for what you guys do. But most of all, I want to send a special thank you to all of our listeners for an amazing year here at Hogwarts Radio. I cannot wait to see what 2019 is going to bring for us. And I am going to be on pins and needles the whole time.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was very excited with how 2018 turned out. It seemed like a really big year. It had some problems, clearly. But I think the resurgence that we talked about is very motivating to continue working in this space, and definitely a good time to be in the community. One last thing that I wanted to mention earlier, but I totally forgot. If you haven't checked out the Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, Makers, Mysteries, and Magic on Audible, it's awesome. It's not a very long audiobook. It's about 5 hours, and Mr. Fogler takes you through and talks to a bunch of the different production designers. It's almost like a behind the scenes DVD special features type thing, all audio. It's very, very cool. Check it out. And the last thing is actually a Christmas present that I got from Miss Bailey Riddle, and it's the London History of Magic exhibit DVD. It's about an hour and a half long, and it's really cool. And it has one-on-one conversations with J.K. Rowling as she's looking at a lot of the pieces in the exhibit that are specifically special to her and her own life. And I highly recommend that as well. Really, really good stuff. Different takes on some of the things in there that you don't really get anywhere else. And definitely interesting getting J.K.'s perspective on things, as always.
Well, guys, we are out of time this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Terrance Pinkston.
And I'm Luke Hogan.
And we'll see you in 2019. Everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
You stay classy, Hogwarts.